104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. Though we were lucky enough to get Tommy John on the phone. When we got a hold of you, Tommy, we didn't realize how many reasons we're going to need you. We thought this was going to be a quick question about some of the pitchers, and then Gleyber Torres slides into home plate, blows out his UCL. He's got to have Tommy John. How unique is it for an infielder to need Tommy John surgery?
Okay, an asterisk. Are you ready for it?
Okay.
It was his non-throwing arm.
Right. Even more weirdness.
Yeah, it's and what I'm wondering is this: was it a complete tear, a partial tear, or just some fibers torn? That's the thing. There's three different levels. There's probably more than that, but the complete tear, the only way it's going to get well is you need it operated on and do the transplant. A partial tear, you can get by with putting it in a cast, splint, whatever, and let nature heal. So I don't know if it was a full tear or whatever. It would be interesting if the doctors would say, but they never do.
Well, I know they opted for the surgery. So with it being the non-throwing arm and him being an infielder, not a pitcher, Cashman says he'll be back for spring training. Do you see any reason he wouldn't be?
Why not? I mean, he doesn't. Maybe he eats with that arm, and that's what they're afraid of. That he won't be able to feed himself. But knowing the Yankees and Brian Cashman and all those guys, they would get somebody to come in and hand feed him.
Masahiro Tanaka, one of the pitchers for the New York Yankees who's struggling now, and it feels like when we talk to you every year, we wonder about Tanaka's future and what could happen with him going forward. Is there any time where you're too quick to Tommy John surgery, where maybe people should lay off it and say, you know what, let's try to have him pitch through this?
Well, you can't pitch through a complete tear. That's impossible. You can possibly pitch through a partial tear, but that's why you have to know what it is. There was a kid in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was helping out at the local high school. My kids went to a school called Charlotte Christian. By the way, they had a basketball player there by the name of Steph Curry that went to that same high school. Jeez, But anyhow, the mother called me up, and she was hysterical. My son's got to have Tommy John surgery. And I said, what did the MRI say? And she said, well, they never did one. And I said, wait a minute. How do they know if it's torn if they didn't do an MRI? And I said, what if I call and get you an appointment to see Jim Andrews?
Yes.
And she said, you can do that? And I said, yeah. So I made a call and got an appointment. They went over the next week, saw Dr. Andrews. He did the MRI the day before. The next day, he came back in and gave the results. So he comes in and he said, wait a minute, what are you in here for? And she said, well, we're here. My son's got to have Tommy John surgery. He said, no, he doesn't. He's got a broken ulnar. It was a fracture. And these guys in Charlotte, they did the manual movements, and they got pain, and they said, oh, he needs Tommy John surgery.
Wow.
Okay, let's play the next chapter. The next chapter goes, they cut him open. Who's going to know if he did or he didn't other than the doctor, the anesthesiologist, and whoever's in the operating room with him? Oh, that's another $15,000. Thank you very much. Just put it in my account. And that's why, the kid had it in a cast for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, did a rehab program, and he came back and he pitched, and I mean, now I'm not saying that the Yankee doctors, that's what they did or whatever, but sometimes they jump early, and but if it's completely torn, it's got to be done. I mean, it's got to be. And maybe Tanaka, he only got hurt when he came over here. Maybe he should go back home to Japan where they do a lot more training of the body and everything, and maybe he would get well and pitch over there. Or he could go by the way of the other Japanese pitcher that they had. What was the fat guy?
Hideki Arabu.
That's it, Arabu. I remember one time I was broadcasting, and he didn't cover first base on a ball, and everybody made a big thing on it. And I said, well, that happens. You don't want it to, but it can happen. And then I found out that from the mound to first base was a little too far for him to run, that they didn't have a snack bar over there for him to get something to eat.
Tommy John with us right now at 104.5 The Team, four-time All-Star, 288 Major League wins. So with the Tanaka, it's weird because, Tommy, you tell this story about how doctors, they're not even doing MRIs and they're jumping to Tommy John surgery. And then you got Tanaka, who we know he had tears, maybe not a full tear, obviously, but and they don't do the surgery with him. At this point, how do you fix what's wrong with Tanaka?
I don't know what doctors did he go down to see Andrews or I don't know. If he's got tears and his arm hurts and it hurts every time he pitches and all this, maybe he needs to go get Tommy John surgery. I don't know the whole story because I don't follow the Yankees. The Yankees don't invite me back to Old Timers Day, so I don't follow them.
Well, because you pitch better than a lot of the guys they've got in the starting rotation right now, Tommy.
Well, nah. I'm 74 years old. I can't pitch hay to horses anymore. So, what we're trying to do is just be able to play golf from the Caitlyn Jenner tees, and I'd be happy for the rest of my life.
Tommy, let's go back to the time where you're going through the recovery process and getting back to Major League Baseball. As an athlete, What was the biggest obstacle? Was it mental? Was it physical for you to get back on the mound?
Well, it was mental. I had surgery. Dr. Job did surgery on my elbow in 1972. I had torn the flexor mass off my elbow. So he went in and did the surgery, reattached it, and so I'm coming back that next spring, and I'm ready to go, and I'm throwing, and everybody's asking me, "Is your arm okay? Is your arm okay? Is your arm okay?" I said, "Yeah, my arm's fine. Yeah, my arm's fine." Finally, a couple of the coaches' wives asked me, "Is your arm okay, Tommy?" And I just exploded. And, like that, and I shouldn't have. And I apologize later for it. But that being said, Dr. Job and I had a long talk. And he said, "I can't tell you that you're ready to pitch. I can tell you that you're healed. The manager can't tell you. Pitching coach can't tell you. The trainer can't tell you. The only person that can tell you you're ready to pitch is you."
Huh.
So, I did some things that were crazy the next day or so, but I went into the bullpen and I threw 1 hour as hard as I could throw, 1 hour of fastballs. And the next day I did 45 minutes of curveballs as hard as I could throw. And the next day my arm wasn't sore. And, that feels pretty good. I went out and I pitched an inter-squad game, and everybody came up and they said, "That's the old TJ. That's the old J." Yeah. And that's when I knew I had to convince myself. So when I had the big surgery in 74, it didn't make any difference how I felt. I knew I had told myself already that I was not going to pitch in 75, so I didn't really try to. I just I took it easy, and I took it slow. I took it long. I took it slow. And I knew that it took me half a year, and then I started throwing the ball pretty good. But I pitched in a ball game 1 year, 1 day after surgery. And that's pretty quick. And I think now that, if you tell somebody they have the surgery that they're going to be back 1 year, 1 day, I think everybody would toast, would drink champagne on that. But, you have to convince yourself. If you don't think you're ready to pitch, you will not. And I'll tell you a quick story. We had a kid in the Expo organization, had Tommy John surgery. He was not he just couldn't pitch. And he kept, oh, no, oh, I'm not. And everybody's saying, he's a wuss. He's this. He's that. We should put a dress on him. He's this, you know. And so we had a meeting, the Major League staff and the AAA staff, and they were talking about this pitcher. And his name is Scott Downs. You can look it up. Scotty Downs was traded from the Cubs to the Expos. He was in the Expos starting rotation, and he pitched pretty good for him. Had to have Tommy John surgery, and he never came back to where he was. Everybody was saying, you know, all these derogatory remarks about him. And although he would have been a cute girl, but, you know, I mean, that being said, I can't. But anyhow, Omar Minaya said, well, let's ask the guy who had the surgery. So they asked me to speak. And it's probably one of the reasons I never had a job long in the Expo organization. I said, how many of you guys in here have had Tommy John surgery? Raise your hand. And I raised my hand, and I looked around the room, and I said, oh, you trainers haven't had it? You strength guys haven't had it? You guys haven't had the surgery? No. I said, then how do you know what it's like coming back? Well, we have studies. I said, you can stick the studies up your butt. I said, the studies mean nothing. And I said, when Scott Downs is ready to pitch, Scott Downs will come back and pitch like he did when you traded for him. Well, they never gave him a chance. Frank Robinson couldn't stand him, and he had a ball game. I remember he had a runner on third base, and he wild pitched him in, and they took him out in the first inning and never let him get out of the first inning. And then he was sent back down to AAA ball. They released him, and the Blue Jays picked him up, and he pitched 7-8 years for the Blue Jays, and he pitched well. And it was just somebody having confidence in him, and Scotty saying, I'm ready to pitch. You can't say, oh, well, you know, this guy's ready. He's got to have it in his mind. If Tanaka doesn't think he can pitch, there's no way in hell that you're going to get him back out on the mound and pitching like he can.
Tommy John with us right now, 104.5 The Team. Tommy, I got to know this before we let you go. You had the surgery in '74. You're the pioneer. Have you ever had to have more work done on that elbow?
No.
Wow. I mean, we hear so many stories about the not like guys hurting it again and everything else. You're the first one to have it done, and it never had an issue.
No, and I pitched 13 years after surgery before I quit. I never missed a start in 13 years. And I pitched out of the bullpen. Between starts, I pitched the day after I started a game. I was in the bullpen. I came in and I pitched. I started on 3 days rest. I started 4 days rest. In fact, in the 81 World Series, Bob Lemon brought me in Dodger Stadium. Game 4, I came in and I pitched 2 2/3 innings out of the bullpen. And we ended up losing, but I pitched. You know, that was post-surgery. And nowadays, guys get a hangnail or they get post-nasal drip, and they've got them. They got him back on. We got to send him to this and that. I think my son's going to have a book come out next year. He's a Dr. Tommy John. He's going to have a book come out about sports, about Tommy John surgery and all this stuff. And the thing that I did, and when I tell people this, they said, oh my God, we would never do that today. Oh, we would never do that today. I threw a ball 6 days a week off the mound to a catcher. And they said, we would never do that. We would never do that.
Right.
And why? I got my arm ready. I convinced myself my arm, I could throw, and my arm wouldn't hurt. Oh, we can't do, no. Oh, no, we've got, what was your pitch on your comeback? What was your throwing schedule? And I said, I threw till I got tired. Well, how many pitches? I don't know. I never counted. I just pitched. When my arm got tired, I quit. Now, we're going to go with 25 from 30 feet and 25 from 50 feet, and then we'll rest. And they have all this stuff. And it's like they want them to come back, but they don't want to hurt themselves. and I think in the process of doing it, they hurt the pitcher more than they help the pitcher. But these trainers and strength guys and everybody will tell you, the Yankees now have a trainer that's called a rehab trainer down in Tampa. His brother, the rehab trainer, I can't think of his name, but he was my trainer out in the Arizona Fall League. And he just gets guys that have been injured and that they come down. And, okay, this is what you do and this is what you do. And when I had it, there was no train. We had a trainer, but I just went out and I threw a baseball. And my son said, Dad, what you did was better for your arm than what these guys are doing now. And the book is going to be earth-shaking about Tommy John surgery and other things and kids being 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and all that. And then we're also coming out, we're in negotiations with a Tommy John movie. It's going to be, we're trying to get, they've gotten John Voight interested to play me as an older Tommy John, and they're trying to get somebody to play me as a younger Tommy John. And so it's going to be interesting to see what we've got. But, life is good, and I love talking baseball. I love talking about Tommy John surgery.
Tommy, we appreciate you making some sense of all this nonsense that Gleyber Torres, this one, that one, the other one, and then the only guy who really knows what he's talking about, I feel like, is you and your son. So thank you for making sense of it all for us.
You're welcome. Thank you much. Bye-bye.